How's it going, everybody? It's Zach with Do Minis. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a real quick moment and thank everybody who's subscribed so far. The channel is just about at 500 subscribers, which is huge, and I greatly appreciate your support. But without any further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Here's a real quick shot of all the colors I used. Feel free to take away and add as you feel fit, but I just figured I'd do a quick shot of everything that I used along the way. So I did pick these particular sisters up secondhand. They've already been blasted with a lead belcher spray can. And there's just a bunch of mold lines and things that I like to clean up on stuff before I give them a good paint job. So I just did that quickly. Mold lines show really hard on really fine models like these. So do your best to remove them beforehand so that you can improve your paint job. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that metallic shine. So I just hit them with a matte black base coat just to really make sure that all of the deep shadows were going to be dark for me. And then I come by with a Vallejo German Red Brown, which is an actual primer, and I just did kind of a pretty heavy zenith on there. I left a little bit of the black showing, but this for the most part was the base color. And then coming in with Ivory, I'm going to give my model kind of a zenithal, hitting mostly the armor and just kind of giving the rough highlighted areas of the cloak from straight above. Then we're going to come in with Vallejo's Mecha Green Blue and Model Colors Verdigris. And I just throw this on the wet palette and grab kind of a shitty brush, and I just kind of start playing with it and pushing it around. This is the initial color I kind of wanted the armor to be, was more in this minty hue, where it kind of at the end landed more in kind of a bone and ivory color all over. Next, I'm kind of just adding a little bit of white into the mix, kind of brightening up and getting my highlight color. And again, I'm just kind of, stippling and poking and kind of putting the color at the, highest points on the armor. Not really following any rules. This is, after all, a test model, and we're just trying to see what we can achieve. As we'll come to see in this video, I really didn't have a plan with the cloak. So I just, while I had white on the brush, I just kind of used it to, vaguely edge highlight the cloak and kind of establish what would be a very long and tedious process that doesn't even look anything like it started. Then I come in with snakebite leather and I just block in that cloak. And while that's drying, I'm just going to pull up my small dry brush, load up a little bit of white, and kind of dry brush sketch in the details of the face, just so I can kind of get a little bit of a map. Next, we're going to base coat our skin tone with Cadian Flesh Tone. Next up, we're going to grab the contrast paint Black Legion, and we're just going to use that to hit the bolter. Next up, I base coated the metallic details with Vallejo Model Color Aluminum, and I just added a touch of the Snakebite Leather contrast paint just to kind of hue it down a little bit, and so I could bring up a highlight with just using the color straight from the pot next. After hitting all the metallic details, I decided to start messing around with the cloak again after all of that contrast paint had dried. So here we are with kind of a mix of khaki with Citadel's Baylor brown, and I'm just kind of using that vertically up the cloak to establish kind of the dominant highlights. If you can't tell from the main clip of this video and how the cloak ended versus how it looks right now, I'm very indecisive with how making cloaks look good, so I will obviously be changing it up a bit. But I did want to include these steps just for the sake of if someone was curious how it would look doing it this way, or just the fact that I figured I'd include all the steps that got me from A to Z. But my happiness with that was shortly lived, so just here I'm giving it a quick glaze with a watered down scorch brown. While that whole mess dries, we're going to bust out Reikland Flesh Shade real quick, and we're just going to give some depth to our face. Alright, now back to that cloak. So here I pull out a little bit of the Vallejo Model Color Khaki, and I am just mixing it 50-50 with that Scorch Brown to just kind of give myself that highlight color for my my hatch marks. And I go all over the model, and I'm slowly trying to bring it all towards the center, as far as like on each side of a fold, and then on the edges I just obviously go away from the edge. Then after I finished that, I just did a quick actual edge highlight of the cloak. Here I'm just coming back in with my Scorch Brown and just touching up my darker spots. Then real quickly I transitioned into a little bit of a white with gray mix, and I just hit the top of that hair to kind of establish a base coat. Alright, well, we've done our best to establish all of our base coats, block everything in, and give some highlights, but now we're going to blend it all together using an enamel wash, and this time we're going to use actual streaking grime and not streaking effects like last time. This product can be applied by brush if you're unfamiliar with it. I just use an airbrush for the sake of time and making it done real quick and evenly. But then we're going to bust out our odorless mineral spirits, and I, again, try to use a Q-tip for the good of everybody else on the internet, but I don't understand it. I don't see the real draw to it. Mine just started falling apart after a couple strokes of the softer part of the cloak. So I gave up, grabbed a cheapo brush, started loading it up and dabbing all of my excess off on my paper towel, and most of the time I'm trying to just pull down from the model. I'm trying to bring that darkness down. In hindsight, this is pretty much where my scheme failed, because I did not use a varnish to lock in my minty color, and I think this is where I started to lose it, and it really started to slip more into the kind of ivory tone, which is fine. It just wasn't the effect I was initially going for. Now, after messing with all of that, and we're going to give that some time to kind of dry out, I'm just going to pull out the Black Legion contrast paint again and just hit the base real quick. Not trying to be super neat or anything, just trying to make sure I keep that black away from the sister's feet. In my massive sweeping brush strokes of removing the enamel paint, I kind of removed all of it from the kind of metal details. So I just went back in here with null oil and just kind of reestablished some depth to the metallic details of her armor. We used that initial white on the hair just to kind of establish the blocking color of what it was going to be. But now we're going to go in with just a touch of the Fenrisian gray and then that bold titanium white, and now we're going to give a really nice cold base coat to that hair. And this is going to add a really nice level of detail, and it's really going to bring your eye to her head, because it's going to become the brightest part of the model. And the key reason for adding that Fenrisian gray to the white is so that when we do come back to the hair for the last time with a more absolute white, we can actually use it as a highlight instead of it just melding in with the rest of the hair. And with white already on the brush and us already working primarily on her face, might as well dot those eyes. I'm getting a really Halle Berry Storm from X-Men vibe with this face scheme so far. And with giving that off-white some time to dry on her head, I'm just going to go back with my more absolute white, and I'm just going to kind of touch the hair up a little bit and give it a little bit more of a detailed effect. I do not plan on going any further detailed into the eyes on a troop model for a game, but I will add this blue to kind of just give a little bit more for the eye to look at when we're looking at her face. We're going to load up some Cadian flesh tone on our brush again, and now we're going to try our best to hit about the 80% of her face that you would consider the raised surfaces. Her cheeks, her nose, and her lips we're going to touch with a wash here in a bit, but to establish a little bit of a highlight, try to hit that upper lip a little bit. Now, there's a lot of really clever colors you can use to kind of punch up and highlight with skin tone, but I'm just going to kind of go basic with it, and we're just going to add a little bit of white into our Cadian flesh tone. And now we're going to go for the extreme surface edges, meaning the top of her cheeks, the bridge of her nose, and the rule of less is more always is applied when it comes to painting faces. The face is looking really good, but I just still feel like it's missing a little bit of something, and so I grabbed Carroburg Crimson, the Games Workshop wash, and I just very lightly added to the lips just a little bit. We do not want to, paint her up like a clown. All we're trying to do is, again, just add that extra little bit of detail to the face to draw our eye. And with those details on the face drying, we're going to come in one last time with our very fine detail brush. I mixed up kind of a 50-50 mix of white with that Baylor brown to just kind of give our extreme highlights. And again, less is more. Then I do the same with the armor and just adding a little bit of white into the mix. And I'm doing the same kind of thing I did with the cloak and just kind of doing subtle little lines to just add the edge highlights and then add, a little bit of interest to the armor panels. Now fully recognizing that I have pulled completely away from the minty green color that I was shooting for initially, I just come in with a Thonian camo shade, and this is not heavy-handed. I do not want to create any type of copy staining, so I do put it on the wet palette. I do wick off my brush of most of the excess, and I'm just trying to do this as a really light glaze over pretty much all of the model to just kind of tie those last highlights into the cloak and those last highlights into the armor panels. Off camera, I mixed a little Fenrisian gray with some white, got kind of an off color, filled up my flat dry brush and just kind of hit that base real quick. And with that, finally, the last and most critical and crucial step of any paint scheme, painting the rim black. And with that, Grimdark Sister of Battle is in the books. I think if I would have gone back and done anything differently, I probably would have added the varnish before I used the streaking effects, just because it would have probably retained that minty color a little bit better. But hey, you live and you learn. If you're still watching all the way to the end, hey, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Consider subscribing. I put out a video once every week or so and would greatly appreciate your support. Until the next time, deuces.